Back to Hardball, time for The Fix with David Corn, the Washington Bureau Chief from Mother Jones Magazine, and Lois Romano of the Washington Post. Let's take a listen now to the governor of Alaska. She took another shot at McCain and the whole campaign, in fact, in a recent speech up there to the north.
It was the night of the vice presidential debate in Biden. So I'm getting ready to go out there on stage, and before any big thing, I prayed and I asked for, God's wisdom and strength and everything else, and dedicated to God, and asked Him to lift me up. So I'm looking around for somebody to pray with. I just think maybe that'll help. I need a little bit extra. Well, and the McCain campaign, love it, and there are a lot of people around me, but nobody that I could find that I wanted to hold hands with and pray.
What do you make of that, Lois? I couldn't find anybody to pray with. It just seems like you don't even need to talk like this.
I think it's bizarre, and I think it's judgmental. And why did she need to pray with anyone? Why couldn't she just pray by herself? Prayer and religion are very private things. I think she was clearly pandering to the only base she has, which is the religious right. She just formed a PAC, and this is the way she gets news.
And remember, she was talking there to a meeting of Republicans. So she was dissing John McCain before Republicans. And a lot of McCain aides who worked with her on the campaign, who were very offended by this. They were around. They say, hey, I would have prayed with her easily. I mean, it was a mean and catty thing to say. I think the big point it shows is that she's not getting good political advice. She's up in Alaska. There have been a lot of Republican consultants and advisors down in Washington who've tried to call her and give her some strategic advice. They've all been told, no, thank you, we'll handle it from here. And if this is the best advice they're giving, to go out there and talk about not being able to pray with John McCain's campaign aides, I mean, I don't see the point.
I just wonder whether we've underestimated her, because I do think she has, the it thing in politics. She can give a speech better than 90% of the politicians you meet. She turns on a crowd. She does. She's a good orator.
Well,
I mean, compared to 90% of men and women you meet in politics, white and black, Hispanic, Asian American, she can actually turn on a crowd.
Right. You were there the night she gave that speech in Minneapolis. I was there too, and I thought it was a great speech. I wrote it was a great speech, and she got very positive reviews.
Good press,
there were Democrats, and there were Democrats after saying, "Oh my God, okay, we have to worry about this."
Yeah, he has struck magic here.
But then she started doing interviews and having to talk about substance and talk quickly on her feet.
Well, she can give a speech. I mean, she's...
Well, that's a lot. A lot of these guys can't.
Look, I predict that she's going to be Dan Quayle. All the way through.
He was pretty good looking too.
He was good looking, and the right loved him.
Yeah.
But he fell off the table when he went to run for president.
Let me ask you about this blaming the media, which I don't like. This isn't a reliable source here. I'm not a media critic. Yeah. But I wonder whether that works either. But does it? Is it once again, as you said, David? She's working a niche. Yeah. She's working with the fringe, and they believe the media is the enemy, and it may be in some cases. Well, and maybe a lot of cases. But the fact is that, doing that windshield wiper wave, though, is not serious. That's not a serious wave. I'm sorry, that's not what you do when you want to lead the free world. That's more like, look, I'm a celebrity and people like me.
She's been advised just to go for her base right now. Try to secure that, to raise money. She's established this PAC so she can give out money nationally to like-minded candidates. But how is she going to get attention up in Alaska?
I understand all the tactical reasons to do that, but it's a problem. Why? Because she's not an unknown quantity at this point. She has national stature. She ran with McCain. She was on the ticket. She was a vice presidential nominee. She can't act like a backbencher doing these things just to get the base.
Here's why she's a player. A figure. Both times the Republican Party, in 1960 and 1976, and I can recall, lost with moderate candidates, middle-of-the-road candidates. Nixon in 60 against Kennedy, a really heartbreaker for him. And of course, Jerry Ford losing to Jimmy Carter in 76. What did they do? The Democrats, when they lose a close one, go back into the workroom. They're real pals, and they come up with something intricately figured out, and they come up with something a little easier to sell. Right? Republicans don't do it that way. They go back to principle. They go to ideology. They go to the right. And they did that with Goldwater, and they did it with Reagan. And it worked with Reagan. They don't instinctively become more private now. If they're going to the right next time, who's the most likely candidate on the right? On the right.
Well, listen, I still think she's...
Her.
Well, I think Mitt Romney is
on the right.
I don't think they're going to go to her because I think they know she can't win. I just don't think she's going to muster it.
Yeah?
I mean,
how about a three-way or four-way race with 3 men and 1 woman? I don't think
she wears well.
Okay, let me. Here's another Republican story. Michael Steele, again with the God question, was asked if he'd consider running for president. Let's take a listen.
consider it if the opportunity were there and it was right, but God has a way of revealing stuff to you and making it real for you through others. And if that's part of the plan, it'll be the plan. We may have this conversation in 8, 10, 12 years, and you'll sit back and you'll play the tape back and say, well, look at what you said. But it'll be because that's where God wants me to be at that time.
Why does everything sound like the 700 Club with this party now?
I think with him,
everything seems to be a religious discussion.
Well, he's been slapped around a little bit. I mean, he's kind of gone off the reservation, and I think he's trying to get back on the reservation a little bit. I mean, he attacked Rush and, said a couple of other things. So I think he's trying to get with the program here before he loses his job.
Well, is it good to be on the reservation? I forget.
I don't know if it's good or bad, but I think he's a little scared, right?
I don't know. Maybe I'd want to be on the reservation. That phrase is a very interesting phrase. Check that one out.
Listen, he on the wagon, off the wagon, right?
Yeah.
He got in trouble too for questioning the Republican position on abortion, suggesting in an interview, I think with GQ,
it's up to the woman.
That it's up, that it's a matter of choice, and gets slapped down for that. But anytime someone starts talking about, well, I'll do this if God wants me to do it, I get suspicious. And also, the whole notion of Michael Steele, running for president.
Well, Joan of Arc was burned by the bishops for that. We'll be right back with Lois Romano and David Corn with the politics. We're going to talk about Hillary Clinton. She is back big time. She is a major force in American domestic life as well as foreign policy. We saw that again right now today. It's a big story. Hillary Clinton back in the story tonight here on Hardball.
People are choosing Nissan for quality and performance, but